A year ago, women's outnumbered men in the U.S. workforce. Now they account for 100% of the jobs lost in December. Now, there's a lot of funny statistic shit going on in these numbers, so don't take it too seriously at all. A lot of men lost their jobs too. It's just either they or other men were able to land jobs at the same time, so it looked like men as a whole didn't really lose any jobs that month. I personally know men who lost jobs last month, so I know this is, again, this is just statistical mumbo jumbo that they pulled to get this clickbait headline. But clickbait headline aside, why is it that none of the women that lost their job were able to get a new one? Or why weren't other women getting jobs to kind of offset this? As I kind of alluded to on Twitter about this, once companies have to start tightening the belt, the first ones they cut are the diversity quota hires. Everyone they hired on just to meet some arbitrary quota to continue getting some government tax cut or whatever, they're the first ones to go. You don't think they're going to fire the guys that are doing the actual work first, do you? They're only going to start firing those guys once it's up between either them or the executives. The executives always do that. Like they could just fire a few useless VPs and save all the grunts jobs. But no. Let's just fire everyone who does the actual work and we'll ride through it somehow, right? These VPs will continue bringing in money when there's no one to do the actual work. It'll work out somehow. Spoiler alert, it never does. But that aside, as long as there is still some grunt level bloat to cut at the company, that's going to be the first that's cut. And that's all we're seeing now. All these strong, independent women who were celebrating their careers previously are now coming to terms with the fact that they were only ever diversity hires. For the first time in 8 months, the economy saw a dip in job growth, with 140,000 jobs lost in December. All of these jobs, according to analysis from the National Women's Law Center, so you know it's going to be unbiased, belonged to women's, emphasizing the disastrous impact that the Corona-Chan government lockdowns are continuing to have on women's in the workforce. Most of the biggest proponents of the lockdowns are women. You know that, right? It's pretty hilarious how the people who support the lockdowns the most are the ones that are being screwed over by them the most. Well, I can't really say I feel sorry for them. In December, women's lost a total of 156,000 jobs, while men gained 16,000 jobs, according to the National Women's Law Center. Of the net 9.8 million jobs lost since February, women's have accounted for 55% of them. Sorry, it's time to cut the bloat. This is the ultimate trial by fire, by the way. I have met plenty of decent women in the workforce who earned their job through merit. They're not the ones losing their jobs right now. It's the diversity hires that are losing their jobs. December's jobs reports show a stark difference from where women's were just a year ago. For the first time since current year -11, women slightly outnumbered men in the U.S. workforce. Now, according to December's jobs report, women's age 20 and over have an overall unemployment rate of 6.3%, which is nearly twice as high as it was around this time last year. Overall, men aged 20 and over had an unemployment rate of 6.4%, with black men's unemployment rate of 10.4% contributing to this number. All right, so they're bitching that, all these jobs gone, women's most affected. And then in their own article, they say that the women's unemployment rate is like 0.1% lower than the men's. This seems pretty equal to me. I really don't know what they're whining about. It's literally starting to look like they're just whining for the sake of whining at this point. They just want something to complain about. Men still have it worse. Women most affected. We expected that there was a resurgence of the virus, that we would see women's losing jobs they had gained over the last few months, says Emily Martin, NWLC's vice president for indoctrination and workplace justice. Oh, that word does not apply when used with that organization. But she says she was still shocked to see that women's lost more than 100% of the jobs in December. Women lost more than 100% of the jobs. See, I told you there was statistical mumbo jumbo going on. I told you. In the leisure and hospital sector, 498,000 jobs are lost in December, with women's accounting for 56.6% of these losses, despite making up 53.1% of the industry's workforce, according to the NWLC. Instead of looking at the whole industry's workforce, why don't you look at what jobs they had? In the government sector, 45,000 jobs are lost last month, with women's accounting for 91.1% of these losses, despite making up 57.5% of the government's workforce. Well, if you make up 100% of the bloat, it's going to happen. And while the retail trade sector added 120,500 jobs in December, women's accounted for just 44% of those gains, despite making up 48.5% of the industry's workforce. Once again, what jobs do they have? What specific part of the retail trade sector was hiring? You can't just look at the entire thing. When broken down by race, Latina and Black women's experienced unemployment levels that were higher than women's overall unemployment rate of 6.3%. Last month, 9.1% of Latinas and 8.4% of Black women's were unemployed, compared to 5.7% of white women's and 5.8% of white men. Okay, you see the manipulation here? They are, again, owning themselves in their own article. Why are they comparing Latina women and Black women to white men? So 8.4% of Black women are unemployed. How horrible. Let's scroll up a little bit. Oh, 10.4% of Black men are unemployed. So the Black male unemployment rate is 2% higher than the Black female unemployment rate. Women most affected. It's devastating, Martin said, in regards to the government lockdown's impact on working women's, and I'm concerned that it may have a devastating effects for months and years to come. Yeah, it is devastating for the bloat. In addition to women's accounting for all the jobs lost last month, Martin adds that one of the many disturbing numbers she saw in NWLC's analysis is that nearly 40% of women's age 40 and over have been out of work for 6 months or more in December. For Asian women's age 16 and over, that number stood at 44%, and for Black women's and Latinas, that number stood at 40.8 and 38.3, respectively. Now, what about the men's, though? They're not even mentioning the men's numbers. Oh, right, because they would have owned themselves again like previously. At least they kind of sort of learned. We know that those long-term spells of unemployment make it hard to find another job, and it also means that when you do find another job, your wages are likely to be lower. In this economy, a lot of people's wages are going down anyway, all right? So that's just how it works. Although I do agree with this one part. If usually 6 months is the limit. Like if you've been unemployed for less than 6 months, you're still going to get a lot of calls back when you put out applications. But once you've been unemployed for over 6 months, that's when the calls noticeably drop off, and the few that still want to talk to you want an explanation. Why have you been out of work for 6 months? So I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice. Regardless of what the truth is, say you're going on a sabbatical. Say you just needed some time to unwind. Oh, I just took time off to spend with my family. Because if you admit that you were desperately job hunting during those 6 months and you weren't able to land a job, they're going to look at you as if, all right, there's clearly something wrong with this person. So the fact that women's are getting hit so hard in this recession really threatens to widen the gender wage gap going forward. Oh, you mean the thing that's been disproven more times than Santa Claus? Sure. Right now, women's working full-time in the U.S. are paid just 82 cents for every dollar paid to men, with this gap being even wider for women's of color, reports NWLC. Yeah, of course. They're looking at industries as a whole. Okay, so let's look at the medical industry. Oh, these doctors are getting paid $300,000 a year while these nurses are only getting paid $30,000. Gender wage gap. The nurses have to be paid just as much as the fucking brain surgeons. Martin reports that aside from the alarming unemployment numbers we saw in December, last month's jobs report does not account for the millions of women who have been forced to leave the workforce due to ongoing closures of schools and daycare centers. This September alone, more than 860,000 women dropped out of the labor force, according to NWLC. And last fall, 1 in 4 women said they were considering downshifting their careers or leaving the workforce due to the government lockdown's impact, with mothers 3 times as likely as fathers to be responsible for the majority of housework and childcare during the lockdowns, according to Lean In and McKinsey & Company's Women's in the Workplace report. Yeah, I talked about that before. We have no need to rehash most of this, but I do need to make the point here where 100% of the cases that I have seen, the only reason the woman was the one to leave her job was because she was making like a fraction of what the man was. And I will put the offer on the table again. Women, if you want, I will stay at home and raise the kids and do the cooking and the cleaning. You work yourself into an early grave providing for me. If that's what you want, go ahead. Every guy out there listening to this right now, if your wife or girlfriend is getting bitchy about this, if she had to quit her job because of the government lockdowns and she's mad that, why is it me that had to cut my career? Why couldn't it be you? Make her that offer. Just look her dead in the eye and say, okay, I make this much money. At your pay rate, you're going to need to get 3 jobs to meet that. And that's the bare minimum we need to pay our bills. So you get 2 more jobs so you can make as much money as I am. You work yourself into an early grave, and I will gladly quit my job and just raise the kids. I would want nothing more than to spend more time with my kids. I hate working myself into an early grave for a thankless corporation. I would want nothing more than to stay at home. So if you are that dead set on keeping your job, you need to up your game so you can provide for me and the kids. And as soon as you show me how to do that, show me you can do that, I will quit my job and you can be the breadwinner. Deal? I can guarantee you not a single one of your women will agree to that deal. They're just complaining because they just want to hear themselves complain. That's all it is. They just want to complain. But if you give them a solution, they're actually going to get mad at you. Now, you guys ever notice that's just how women are in general? Women just complain because they want sympathy. If you dare give them a solution to what they're complaining about, they get mad. They actually get mad at you for solving their problem and call you insensitive. When a woman's complaining, she doesn't want you to solve her problem. She wants you to pretend to give a shit. That's all she wants. Which is why a lot of guys don't take them seriously. To ensure that women are able to regain their footing in the workplace, Martin says a more robust Corona Chan relief package is needed that includes funding for state and local governments, and that's as that's one sector in which women are overrepresented. Oh, so women have more positions than men at these jobs. We need to maintain that advantage. Okay. What about equality, huh? All of these workplaces where women are overrepresented, they need to fire more women and hire more men, as well as funding for paid family leave and paid sick leave beyond this crisis. Additionally, she says if we want to see more working mothers stay in the workforce or re-enter the workforce, then there needs to be a bailout for the childcare sector. Oh, man, it's still really sad that women have fallen for this lie, hook, line, and sinker. The government and the corporations that own the government, they looked out and saw that they were only taxing half of the population. They were only exploiting half of the population. So they tricked women into wanting to be men. They had the best and easiest job they could possibly have, and they're going to throw that away to work themselves into an early grave like men do. Now, women, I know there's a few of you listening. Do you really think us guys enjoy work? Yeah, there's always the rare exception of the guy that's doing what he loves for a living. But most men, we don't work our asses off at our day jobs because we enjoy it. We do it to take care of you. If it wasn't for you, we would be just fine working some minimum wage, like convenience store clerk job and living in a tiny studio apartment, just like playing video games or whatever. We don't do this because we want to. We do this for you. But if you really want to take it, go ahead, man. Go ahead. The last Corona-chan relief package had about $10 billion for childcare, she says, and it sounds like a big number until you realize that more than $50 billion is needed to ensure that our childcare infrastructure is still there once people are able to go back to work. It really sucks being one of what they call them, latchkey kids. Yeah, at least that's what they called them when I was a kid. Yeah, when your parents are never home because they're both working. You have the key to the house, so you could let yourself in. You can you prepare your own food. You make your own fun. Never even see mommy or daddy. They're both always gone. Oh God! Then you got rich people too. Well, these fucking spoiled rich kids that we have running around, they were raised by their fucking babysitters and maids. They weren't raised by mommy and daddy. Man, these people don't even know what they're doing to their kids. Yeah, at least in my family, my parents were actually smart about it. Yeah, when I was born, my mom quit her job because after doing the math, it was actually cheaper. We came out ahead. If my mom just quit her job to take care of me, than if she continued working to pay for childcare. Because as little money as she was making at her job, the cost for my childcare would have been considerably higher than the money she was bringing in. It really didn't make any sense for her to continue working. And for what it's worth, my dad quitting wasn't an option. He was in the army. You can't just quit the army. And in fact, the only reason he joined the army is because my mom got pregnant with me. He only joined the army because they had to pay for the health care, basically. So let's look at my own parents again. Let's see who really got the raw deal. My mom quit her I think she actually worked at a watch factory on an assembly line. Not a very fun job. So she quit her like draining assembly line job to raise me, to basically be a stay-at-home mother. That's what she sacrificed when I was born. My dad left his, much better civilian job to enlist in the army, just so we could cover our medical bills, or rather, so the army could take care of all the medical bills in regards to like childbirth and all that. So who do you think had the rawest of all these deals? Who do you think had it worse? My mom, who quit her draining, soul-sucking job to be a stay-at-home mother, or my dad, who gave up 21 years of his life to the army? Regardless of what answer you come up with, I know the answer that the mainstream media would come up with. And once again, my dad did. Do you think he enjoyed being in the army? No, he just did what he had to do to take care of his family. That's a lesson that women never seem to notice, Guys don't do this kind of shit because they want to. And yet women are so easy to trick into thinking like they want it. You know, try it out for a few years and see how it works. But just know that unlike guys, you have a time limit when it comes to settling down. If you wait too long to quote unquote settle down with a man and start a family, you're going to miss that chance. But what do I know, right? I'm just mansplaining at this point. Whatever, just ignore me like you were gonna anyway. Doesn't matter to me regardless. Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.